Hi, Misha here, and Arkansas weather is crazy. Last time I was out recording, just a couple of days ago, it was well below freezing. Now I can't even wear a light jacket. It's in the mid, maybe even upper 60s. At least it's letting all the snow and stuff melt. Anyway, that means we can hopefully get out and shoot soon, including this here Heckler & Koch, the MR556A4. I would be honest with you, I ordered this around SHOT Show mostly because I was bored, with very little intent to keep one. But it's kind of growing on me. And I think my plans are going to be to make it into a Gewehr 95 or 95A1 inspired gun. Not clone because, yeah, I'm not paying for the clone correct stuff. And yes, I know coloration doesn't 100% match right now. I'll put black parts on. I was just kind of test fitting it, see if I liked it. But you know, one of the major complaints folks still have about the A4 and had about the A1, the barrel. It is cold hammer forged, and it has a 1-in-7 twist, and it's a lighter profile now. But it is not chromed. Doesn't have a chrome bore, not chrome lined. Why? Well, some might say it's because HK hates us. Others say, well, they tried chroming it, but it didn't work out well. But if you don't like that, you could always go this way. I thought we'd revisit kind of an old favorite of mine, the Taiwanese T91. And the reason I say, right here on the barrel, chrome lined, 1-in-7 twist. So there you go. So does that mean this gun that is significantly cheaper, even though you kind of have to assemble your own, is better than the HK? There was a time when I would have said this actually saw more real-world military fielding. But in more recent years, last 5-6 years, the HK-416, really starting with the A5 and then moving on to the A7, A8, have really started to make this, if not a NATO standard, at least a very popular gun, and that's even including the U.S. Marines with the M27. Started off as a SAW and is now almost standard issue for front lines. But the thing is, both of these guns are inspired by the same root. They're both short stroke gas piston with a multi-lug rotating bolt. Very much based on the AR15, although one more than the other. So very soon we'll get out to the range with this, and I'll complete my Gewehr 95 inspired gun. But today, let's just hang out and talk about this gun now that it's kind of warm out. How about that? And as always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. Like to help us out, check out Patreon. On with the other man. Today, the T91 is the standard issue infantry small arm rifle for Taiwan, with nearly 250,000 in service, plus they've exported 50,000-60,000 others. But it's really the latest in a family that goes back to the late 1960s. And just like the Heckler & Koch, both were inspired by the ArmaLite AR18, this of course being AR180, and believe it or not, I actually prefer the Sterling made ones. I know the Howas and Costa Mesas are the ones that everyone thinks about, but I don't know. I always like kind of the Sunkerite inspired paint on the Sterlings and the extra welds. And you might wonder why this gun inspired so many others, but itself never took off. And that's because this was a really good idea. And that's what ArmaLite really was meant to be, was an idea company. That's why most of these were actually produced under license. It uses a rotating bolt not too dissimilar to the AR, because they could, because the AR-15 was designed there, but because of the patents and the AR-15 gas system, and AR-10 for that matter, being sold to Colt, they had to come up with a new system. Well, sort of. This short stroke system, while it is unique to the AR-18, really just draws upon previous experience. You know, the SKS is a short stroke. It's an iterative improvement. Has an 18-inch barrel. This is not chrome lined, but then again, this was designed to be cheap to produce, not just for civilian sales, but for developing nations. This was the AK of the West, stamped in welded steel, but it had some really neat features. The scope mount, QD mount on the top, ambidextrous safety, although that was really more for the folding stock. Adjustable, more low-profile sights compared with the AR-15. Folding stock is standard versus the AR at this time, you know, the tube. But the ideas were what were important. The actual construction, the welds in the back here, this is not the strongest folding stock. I mean, it has a hollow cavity in it. Certainly did add some extra welding here, but yeah. The handguard is actually held on, the lower handguard I should say, by the gas block, so you can't just immediately remove it. And some of the parts, like for example the bolt hold open device, tend to be fragile. The trigger is actually stamped steel, which doesn't give a great pull, and it's kind of hard to work on. This needed an A1 update, and it just never got it for all kinds of historical reasons. But it was a good idea. It was a reliable gun, an affordable gun, but it was this gas system, this short stroke system, that really folks latched onto. And I don't want this to be an overly long, overly exhaustive video. Not today. I'm not in the mood. You're not in the mood. But how did we get here? You know, I mentioned in a recent M14 video that Taiwan did have licensed production of the M14, known as the Type 57 or T57. Alright, M14 again. Was adopted in 1967 and put into production a short time after, and it would be made at the State Arsenal 205, and it was almost identical to the American one, except they didn't quite use the same phosphate type finish. They had their own. But right as they're getting the T57 into production, they want their first small caliber, so 223 5.56 rifle. But they don't want to go AR-15. They want something more reliable. That's why they turned to the gas piston system. And they would have their earliest prototypes available for testing by 1974-75, and it would be adopted as the T65 the following year. That would be the first iteration, primarily produced between 77 and 79. Then there would be the updated T65K1, which was a very limited production. It had basically an improved handguard, and these would all both be in 1 and 12 twist. And then in 1987, they went to a 1 and 7 twist with the T65K2, which, while I don't have one today to show you, we did actually have a test fire of one from T91 Tactical a few years ago. And she held up. T65 kits and the T65K2 gun, just a victim of bad timing, because it was 2021, beginning COVID, and then that's when Jay had to leave the channel. Kind of a tough time. But those were all full-size rifles, essentially M16A1s, 20-inch barrels with a short-stroke piston. So the Taiwanese Army would issue the T65 standard for a while, and then move up to the T65K2. But these were, long. little heavy, fixed stock. The first carbine would be the T65K3, but they didn't make many of those. Beginning in 1992, that's where this gun starts off. They work on the next generation gun, and at first they want to get away from the system, but they scale it back by 96 because of budget cuts. And the first model adopted was actually the T86, which had a barrel, including the flash hider muzzle brake, of about 376 millimeters. Carbine length gas system, but it did improve the gas system from the previous models to be like a single packet that you could easily remove for cleaning. Still had a fixed carry handle, and they would produce about 5,000 of these, a little less, between 2000 and 2002, and the Taiwanese Navy would use some, but again, budget cuts and delays and modernization kind of didn't make the T86 all that successful. But it would lead directly to the T91 here, named for the year in the Taiwanese calendar of 2002. This is essentially a modernized T86, meant for more standard issue to replace everything. They extended the barrel, including the flash hider, out to about 406 millimeters, so just over 16 inches. That's why this one is pinned and welded from T91 Tactical. This has the somewhat updated M-LOK handguard. A lot of them have the polymer fixed front sight. This has the QD rear, but the carry handle removable, standard pick rail on top. And then we have a AR15 inspired stock, but it has 3 positions. And we have a castle nut, very much like an original, but checkered. Pretty much standard buffer in the back. Pretty much standard shape to the charging handle. Of course, it is for a gas piston, so that's all very different. And the selector would have been a full 4-way and a military gun. You'd have safe, single shot, burst, automatic. This is something they've started playing around with the T65K2s. Notice there's no notches. And they would feed from standard AR15 Stenag type mags, but they would make their own. This is one of the Taiwanese mags. They do have witness holes, and they have overstop bumps. Kind of neat, but I have not found them to be all that reliable. I found that, Colt mags or whatever work fine. First shots.
You're forward. Didn't feed.
Didn't feed. Could be a mag issue. This was tried out in 2003. And then by the next year, the Taiwanese Army would place an order for about 101,000. And then the next year after that, the Taiwanese police forces would order over 12,000. And deliveries would begin. The Army started getting them in 04, running through 08, primarily the police about 2006 through 2009. And then they started exporting some too. Indonesia, Jordan, the UAE bought some. And that kind of brought a total production number a little over 300,000. This is the standard model, as I said. There is a shortened version, the T91 CQB essentially, or CQC. There's also a somewhat heavy barrel version known as the T91S. It's a little different. So, what do I think of this gun? It's one I put together years ago, and it's kind of my second attempt after the Wolf A1. T91. The uppers that Wolf sold were good, but they were not 100% correct. They had an interesting gas block that was actually more from the 91S. It didn't have the bayonet lug. It didn't have this style of front sight. Although the back here was pretty well the same. Notice that there's no forward assist because of the gas piston. There is a small bump there that you could say serves as a brass deflector. Yeah. Put that there. We already talked about the stock. I'm not a big fan of the sling. It's way over much. I wish there was kind of a smaller one, but it is the correct sling. This lower is A1 style. They never really went to the A2 pattern. And it's actually machined out from an 80%er imported from Taiwan, Republic of China. So it's got some cool markings on it. So this gun is either 100% straight from Taiwan or built from parts that came over incomplete, like the lower. That's also how they got these barrels in, as far as I understand. They came over as like mandrels, and then they would cut them to length and thread them here and put them together. First shots out of the T91 Tactical T91, not bad. I had a lot of fun doing this gun, first the original and then this one, so that always goes a long way. Plus, you know, the prices weren't bad, but I kind of got sucked in. At first, I was just going to build it on an A1 lower, and my first ones was, and then, you know, modify a Wolf A1 with the correct gas block. The problem there was actually the diameter of the barrel, because it was more based on the 91S, wasn't quite right. So T91 Tactical had some special gas blocks made that would fit the Wolf, but they looked right. I really do like how the piston comes out. You just push this in and rotate. Again, that's one of the improvements of the T86. The original ones were more kind of like we're used to seeing with the Heckler and Koch and others. Then again, some like the LMT use this system as well. I just think it is neat. And I love kind of the big lock it uses. Again, this is pin and welded. This is an interesting muzzle device because it is a brake and flash hider. The bayonet lug is standard. In fact, here's the Taiwanese essentially copy of an M7, although it's a little bit longer. They've been using essentially this style since the T65 days. Kind of a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Notice it fits on there just right. This is not a very heavy gun. It's only about 7 pounds, so for a gas piston AR, although I swear this sling adds 2 pounds to it. With the stock collapsed in, we're about 31 inches, and with it fully extended, we're about 34.5 inches, give or take. Again, the standard barrel is just over 400 millimeters. Originally, we just had this short piece of pick rail. Very much an A1 inspired gun, even if you can see some updates to it. And what's nice, they're more or less compatible with Colt and other American AR15 parts, like lower parts and stuff. But I have noticed the Taiwanese parts themselves tend to be on the larger side of spec. So if you go to put Taiwanese parts in a US lower, sometimes they fit tight and there might be just the smallest amount of fitting required, sometimes not. The stock is fine. Yeah, I really do like it. We should get out and shoot this more. But I have to admit, it was one of those guns I think I enjoyed more as a project, getting it where I wanted it. And then once I got it done, I kind of put it on the shelf and that's it. I don't regret it. I look at it occasionally and go, that's cool. I do wish we had those T65 K2s that T91 Tactical was going to do. Things have. Still could build up one of those T65 kits, although they're a little, worn. It's just what it is. But I think I would enjoy having a rifle to go along with it because I did enjoy shooting the rifle version. But what do you think? Yes, this sling is my least favorite part of this gun. halfway tempted to find a different one and use the hook. I mean, I can. Lots of things will fit it, but I was trying to be clone correct. And this gun really is, at least for a certain version. What do I think about quality? Now, you could have picked up at one time a Wolf A1 upper and put it on just any lower you wanted. The A1 upper was $500-600 if you weren't worried about it. Now, if you wanted to go full hog, like I did here, it was going to cost you more. But even then, at the time, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you could do it for, you know, including the lower and everything, $1,500 or less retail. And at that time, the Heckler & Koch MR556A1 was running easily double that. The A1 had its own issues. And with the A4 here, what do I think? Now, much has been said about the price of these. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the places reporting the price are kind of using the full-fledged MSRP. I think actual street price will come closer. But even at that, let's just say this is half the cost. Is it half the gun? Okay, this gun feels good. It feels like a nice, smooth gun. It doesn't have quite Colt quality. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Maybe like a Smith & Wesson M&P. I don't mean that in a bad way. But again, since this is put together with the original upper and a US finished out lower, it's not a 100% fair comparison. But I've used the original bolt group and trigger group in here. It's converted to semi-auto, so it should be as good as possible. And to be fair, the Heckler & Koch has US work done, so they're really pretty much the same there. But accuracy-wise, no, this isn't going to hold a candle to the Heckler & Koch. You know, this isn't an accuracy channel. I'm blind. I'm not an accuracy guy. But this is going to be a 2, maybe even 2.5 MOA gun. Hard to say. We haven't had the A4 out yet, but just based on other folks' videos, this is easily a 1.5 MOA gun. Probably even better with the right ammo and the right optic and, really getting to know it. So absolutely, you're going to get better accuracy. Also, the bolt throw, the trigger, far superior. This one, again, isn't bad, very military, but it's very standard. Fitment, again, it's a little hard to judge because of the parts being put together. But I will say the quality of, like, the small parts and everything, while the Taiwanese quality isn't bad, it's not perfect. I've noticed some small machining errors. I've had 1 or 2 of their parts break. Nothing major, just a spring or a pin, over the years on different builds and stuff. I'm working with them. Maybe HK parts would. Somehow I doubt it. The stock is also a lot tighter. The handguard fitment is a lot tighter. Much stronger spring on this. Little heavier gun though, not gonna lie. But then again, we've got a 16.5-inch barrel versus essentially a 14.5 with a pin and welded on. So part of that's that. I do like the access to the gas system better on the 91. I said that back in the LWRC video when we talked about the LMT. I've always liked just coming out the front system better. But I know not everyone does. Some like the system that the HK uses, which it adopted from its G36, where you remove the handguard and pull your piston off the top. It's probably a little more secure, to be fair. I should also point out that, of course, the A4 has an adjustable gas regulator. So if you're going to run a suppressor, definitely this is the superior gun. I don't know how well the T91 would handle the extra force and just overall the extra punishment of running a suppressor long term. Maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect that's just not what they're really geared for. So in terms of a curiosity, a military gun, this one's really neat. I had a lot of fun, as I said. absolutely no regrets to it, and I think Taiwan definitely has good reason to want to have good military arms to go up against the Type 81, the QBZ-95, and even newer Chinese guns. Then again, the HK-416 in Norwegian, French, German hands, who knows? You know, I concluded in my original video years ago that while I liked the MR556A1, I just didn't quite see how it did better compared to other piston guns like the T91, you know, for the money. I have to admit, part of it is just my changing attitude, and part of it is HK furthering this design. It's starting to win me over, but proof will be in the pudding how it shoots. Then again though, hey, non-chrome bore, chrome bore, so if that's like your deal, if chrome bore is what means a gun is superior, then, well, the T91 is superior. Like I said, it was just a nice day out, and after being stuck indoors because of the cold, I just felt like talking about guns. But yeah, the T91, kind of a gun that was thought about a lot back in the Wolf A1 days when T91 Tactical was kind of around. But you don't hear much about it anymore. It's kind of a shame. It is, I think, pretty cool, pretty interesting. What do you think? Did you ever put one of these together? If so, how'd yours turn out? Love to hear about it in the comments. With that, if you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out the link to Patreon. If not, liking, sharing, subscribing, that goes a long way too. This is Misha. We'll catch you very soon at the range next time.